On today's episode, we're going to take some low-end speakers from the 70s and make them less low-end with some decent speakers from the 90s. It's a veritable symphony of mediocrity, folks. What's up, nerds? I found these at Goodwill of all places a few weeks ago. And it surprised me when I saw them because you don't really find anything cool, vintage, and affordable on the shelves at Goodwill anymore. I mean, it's over the last, I'd say, 5 to 10 years, they've really gone downhill. It's just, dollar store quality stuff that they're selling new and just garbage on the shelves. I mean, you can literally go get something better for a few dollars more at Walmart or something. I don't know what they're doing, but whatever. Anyway, saw these on the shelf. These are realistic Solo 4B speakers. They came out, well, this model did, in the early mid 70s. The original version, the Solo 4s, came out in the late 60s. It featured a 5x7 speaker, almost like a car speaker in them. And this model kind of, I don't know if it's an upgrade or not. They just went to a plain 5-inch, just, plain as you can be speaker in there. It was round and it made sound. No tweeter, no bass, no nothing. It was just an extension speaker, I guess, to add on to your basic hi-fi system or, your record player or what have you. So they were, not the best quality sounding speakers, but I guess they were entry level, affordable, and whatever. But these things are in relatively good shape. I mean, there's the usual little scuffs and marks on them, after 50 years of, storage and wear, whatever. But, the connectors are in good shape. The back and everything is in really good shape as well. Little scratches here, but work those out. Even the grill cloth is in really decent shape. We've got a couple of nicks on them, but you still have the badges. So all in all, they look like they should be in really good shape. I haven't tested them out for sound yet. That's the bad news. But the goal of this video is that we're going to upgrade these things. I mean, to some more decent speakers. I mean, I'm not talking audiophile or really good, I'm not going to spend a lot of money upgrading these little things because I have no idea, the quality of the wood involved. I'm sure it's particle board with a veneer on it. So it's not going to be this really exotic wood enclosure that's built and designed, by engineers for the maximum audio quality. It's a box that has a speaker. Come on, let's be real here. So we can upgrade the sound a little bit, and we'll try and do it. Well, I'll say it on the cheap. Find something better at a thrift store or, God forbid, another Goodwill. A decent bookshelf speaker that we could harvest the speakers, and if it comes with tweeters and a crossover system, that would be great. And kind of redo the inside of this a little bit, and still kind of hide it behind the grill cloth if we can take that off decently. I haven't even tried to remove any of this stuff yet. So we're going to learn as we go on these things. But anyway, let's hook these up and see just how good or how bad they truly sound, if they even work at all. These cones could be shredded to hell. I don't know. I can't really, I see a vague outline of a circle in the right kind of light. So yeah, I know there's a speaker in there, maybe. Testing these guys out, and only one works, to the surprise of no one, and the one that does work sounds as flat can be. I can no longer use my Chumbawamba because I get a copyright strike on that for even 3 seconds of it. So I'm just using something nice and classical, some Tchaikovsky. He's got some, nice hits in his symphony. A lot of dynamic range usually. Not so. You'd never know in these little speakers. So, yeah, these are horrible sounding. So I have no regret taking these little speakers out and throwing them out. I got the backs removed. Came off easy enough. Just a handful of really looks like nice brass screws or brass-ish screws. So that's good. The see by the sides, yes, they are particle board with the little. Well, the sides look solid. Yeah, the sides are solid wood, so that's that's pretty good. You know, just these bracings are particle board. You have the baffling material in here, which is pretty much insulation, fiberglass, cheap. Behold, the speakers. They are round. They make sound. That's it. Looks like they're zoom in a little bit here. They may be just hot glued or plastic welded in place, I guess. Um, yeah. And I don't see really any way to get the fronts off of the speaker enclosures here. Let me spin this guy around so you can see. Also, these little terminal thing is nice. You know, you have the option of using the old-fashioned flathead screws, or you can plug an RCA jack in there and it just kind of sits. I mean, I'm not too big of a fan. Something tells me there should be a little resistor or something to kind of keep these from being open like this. Maybe I'll desolder these guys and just solder directly to these inputs here. That way I'm bypassing these screws. And you don't have that added potential for any kind of interference on here. That may be the way to go. But we put this around, back in, spin this around. Yeah, I'm real hesitant. I mean, I'm going to have to do it. I'm not looking forward to it, but getting something flat in there like a real thin paint scraper and see if I could pry this out and get the grill cloth off so we can cut to fit. Because we're going to need another hole in there for the tweeter, or if we get one that has a tweeter, just to kind of see what happens. But I guess we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So that being said, the masterpiece of engineering for the Realistic Corporation, circa 1973. Speaker box. It's a triumph of minimalism, folks. Anyway, let's go see if we can find some donor speakers. So, off to the thrift stores. It's been a few days, but I found these at a pawn shop. They're JVC UX B1001 bookshelf speakers. They originally came bundled with the UX1 micro bookshelf stereo system that was released in the early 90s by JVC. And from all the reviews I was able to find online, this was considered kind of a high-end little bookshelf system. I mean, they said the sound, the build quality, everything about it was really, really good. But since there was no stereo to go with these speakers, I got them for the whopping price of $15, which, for just blank speakers, just, replacing speakers, that's pretty good. I hooked them up to my stereo to test them, and they do sound far better than the old ones. When I say old ones, I mean these Realistics. Of course, I think anything would sound better than these, but these were actually really good. They're made out of particle board with a plastic front, naturally, but the speakers are in really good shape. The cones, there's no wear, no rotting, no dry rotting or anything. Got a little 1-inch tweeter. I think these are like metric size, so the equivalent is like 4.7 something inches, which is close enough to the 5 in here. We may have to do some modification, but not too much. Definitely we'll need to cut out, a little hole for the tweeter. these have a little base port that goes back. There's like a one, two, three, four. I don't know, I have to measure it when I get in there. Maybe we can Dremel this part off and harvest the tube, because even though they're different dimensions than the old speakers here, let me pan up. I mean, they're taller by a bunch, but these are wider and deeper than these are. Well, these are wider, just not high or as deep as these are. So the basic area is fairly close. Also, because we have tweeters here, I'm kind of hoping there's a crossover system in here, like a passive crossover system. If not, they might just have a couple of like resistors and capacitors, hooked in between to, facilitate that. But we'll find out. But they're almost the right size. The price was definitely right, and they sound good. So checked all the boxes in my book. So let's crack this guy open and see what we're working with on these guys. I'd be lying if I said these were really easy to get apart. I mean, theoretically, these lids should just pry off. But as you can see, they're particle board. And particle board and humidity in southeast Louisiana, especially 30 plus years of it, do not really fare well. I mean, this is actually, it crumbled off really easily here, and you can just feel it. Well, that ain't long for this earth. I'm actually doing it a favor by salvaging these guys here. So these have not been museum quality pieces, so I don't feel bad about taking them apart and harvesting their organs. So that being said, let's get these guys out and see, what electronics lurk beneath. Here is the harvest out of the JVCs. We have a kind of almost 5-inch little woofer speaker here, a 1-inch almost tweeter here. I say almost because these are in metric sizes, or non-freedom units as I call them. We have this little capacitor here. This is serving as the crossover. Very basic. I put in the value of what this has printed on it, which is like a 1.5 microfarad, into the chat GPT, BBQ, BYOB, AI, and it pretty much gave the frequency that it cuts over to the tweeter at like 17 kilohertz, which is insanely high. And it suggested maybe replacing this with like a 8 microfarad capacitor. That way the tweeter can do a little bit more of the heavy lifting of the upper part and a little bit higher mids, and let this guy really take care of the bass, make it more a little punchier. Of course, that's what the artificial intelligence says. Also, we got some acoustic foam in there, and these are the little bass ports. These actually worked out really well. You just have to cut about this size here around this lip of this, tap it in, put this guy in here, and we'll see what happens. The challenging part now is getting this grill off. There are no screws. It's not screwed in that I can see. It looks, you can see the remnants down there. Let me zoom in a little bit. You can tell they wrapped it and then attached it somehow to the speaker, which means it's probably glued, and I may have to try and pry this off. Maybe I can get behind it and gently tap it and it'll come loose, but we'll see what happens. I was able to successfully get this grill cloth off in one piece. The little realistic name badge, however, that's kind of glued pretty well to this cloth. Let me get camera. Uh, I don't want to risk breaking this. So this will actually act as a nice guide. This little hole here. Got to find a way to get rid of this particle board. Maybe I spray this with some warm water or something, I might be able to loosen up the glue. Maybe. I mean, I know it's not hot glue, so I'm going to do something about that. So that's the cover, relatively in one piece. The screws holding on the little speaker here, they're actually little Phillips heads. And I thought they were just like plastic welded on here, but they're actually, you can see little nuts down there. Little nuts. And gobs of glue, adhesive, melted plastic, maybe even on top there. So we'll just take this thing off and test fit the other one. Well, despite my best efforts for trying to pull this off gently, it did not come off as easily as this guy here. They must have used a lot more adhesive or something, because you can still see some of the cloth or fabric embedded in there. And it's not really cloth. It's more of a, like maybe polyester straw looking material. Like the thing they kind of make like artificial straw hats out of. I know it's not real straw, but it's like they took that and made it even thinner and decided to weave it in this. I don't think it's cloth, because it's not as forgiving and bending and whatever. It just gets really brittle and tears really easily. You can see some holes right there where it just kind of decided it didn't want to go without a fight. Anyway, so it looks like I'll be going to Parts Express and seeing if I could find something along the lines that looks like this. Just, kind of gold cloth dotted or something like that. But hey, at least we saved the name badges. That's a plus. Um, Next step is to get the speaker off, sand this down, see how the new one fits. I may have to, you know, put in new drill holes or whatever to mount these. Hopefully the openings are, you know, the same size, if not just smidge off. We'll see what happens. If not, you know what? Now that this damage is done, I can just fabricate a new board right here, get rid of this particle board and put a real piece of wood in there. Um, See what happens. So anyway, we'll play around with this and see how it goes. Well, I spoke too soon. I thought they were just really small Phillips head screws, but yeah, that's not Phillips. That's just round. I don't think anything will be able to grip that. Don't know what they used to hold it down while they put these nuts right here and decided to, you know, that's where they decided to put the extra quality in on these things, is securing these nuts down to the speaker. So what I'm going to have to do is probably break out the Dremel tool and just shear this guy off right at the base here. I mean, I'm not using these screws again, obviously. They're not super rare or museum pieces. So no love lost, but it's par for the course for this project, or really any project I really do. Sorry about the shakiness of this thing. I got to hold this up, and I haven't had my coffee yet. So that's that. Reason 1,000,001 why I hate particle board is that this happens all too often. I was able to get the little nuts off of the speaker that were kind of holding them in, but they still had a lot of adhesive around these parts here. So I took a flat blade and slowly started to kind of pull it up a bit. When I hit here, it just cracked and fell apart actually back there. This was still stuck to the speaker. They really went overboard in that adhesive, though. I give them props for that. But yeah, 50-year-old particle board, never had a chance. So anyway, at least I can get, a nice solid piece of wood. Use this or the other one as a template to, get the size right. I do have some speaker grill cloth unordered. I found some on Parts Express. There you go. You take a look at it here. It almost matches the original, so it's not too bad. So that should be in whenever. And I'll have this, use the template, like I said, cut out some new pieces, maybe relocate the woofer a little further down, speaker here, and give me some room for the bass port. Maybe there's a formula for this. I can look up some kind of calculator where to mount these for optimal acoustic resonance. Look at me using all those fancy words. But anyway, at least the sides of this thing are solid wood. Not the thickest, but they're not particle board, just these little braces. But whatever. These are quickly becoming the speakers of Theseus now. So, yeah, so much for doing this on a budget, but that's the way it goes sometimes, folks. At least these look pretty. So, there's that, right? 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 I'm going all in on this Chat GPT AI helping me build these things. I put the volume of the enclosure into it and also, fed in the speaker sizes and the ohm ratings and what they do and whatnot and the wattage and everything I could think of. And it gave me the exact placements for the best sound on the board here. I had some half-inch plywood, which is just about the same thickness as this particle board here. This swelled up a little bit, swelled, whatever. It's a little bit bigger than a half-inch, just by a little bit. This is half-inch right here, solid wood this time. Next step, gonna cut out the holes, see if I can get these guys to fit in. So yeah, there you go. It's been a couple of days. Did I mention work is just crazy right about now? So that's why there's few and far between updates and videos. So I appreciate you guys sticking it out and, waiting patiently if you are. Oh well. Anyway, I got the holes cut. Had to get the appropriate hole saw sizes. Tweeter, woofer. They fit perfectly. I was able to put the speakers against this and they look cockeyed, but I'm not using my tripod. I'm just doing handheld, but they're relatively even. They fit perfectly. These, on the other hand, are a little bit too small. They were a size between 1.5 and 1 3/4. So I just did the 1.5, and I'm going to I have a little rasp bit, I guess, a little circular barrel one that you can put on the end of a drill and just kind of wallow this guy out just a little bit enough. Just take my time, get it just, wide open enough to where I can just plug this in, and it's a relatively snug seal. So got that. I'm waiting on the grill cloth and the electronic components to get these speakers from 4 ohm up to 8 ohm resistance. That's the only bad thing about these guys here. They were built specifically to match the bookshelf system, which outputted 4 ohms at 50 watts. Most, stereo systems, amplifiers, and all in a house anyway, household ones will output 8 ohm speakers, looking for an 8 ohm load. So I'm going to make a little L pad, and when those come in, I'll show you and kind of explain what that does as well. So Parts Express and DigiKey, I'm waiting, guys. Send your stuff. Well, got all the holes routed to the right size, speakers mounted, bass port is installed. Also put a nice coat of black paint to keep the color uniform, because when the speaker grill cloth goes over it, you won't see that contrast between the light colored wood and the dark speakers and stuff. Speaking of, it came in a nice big old length of it here. Way more than I need, but it's the minimum amount. And it wasn't that bad. I think it was like $15. So what I'll do, I'll just cut pieces just, about an inch bigger on each side. Spray some adhesive here, let it get nice and tacky, lay it flat, let it dry, fold over the sides, tack it down, and that'll be good. But before I do that, I want to get on the electronics part here, constructing the L pad. Basically right now, put your ohm meter on this, it's reading 4 ohms. Most household speakers are outputting 8. Most household, amplifiers, consumer grade stuff, generally puts out about 8. Sometimes they'll be variable. They'll say, okay, well, you can use either or. Somehow with science and wizardry, they compensate for it. But right now, these are 4 ohms. When I construct an L pad, it basically puts more resistance on it. It'll show 8 ohms. And what I may do is install a little switch that'll let you select between 4 and 8 ohms. So that's probably, I don't know if these wires are going to reach. Maybe we can extend them down here, construct everything, on the bottom, mount it with a nice little uh, proto board or something. But knowing the way this goes, it'll just be strung together and hot glued into place and out of sight, out of mind. Post-production Billy here. These next 2 clips, I don't know what happened, but they don't have sound. Thought they did. Oops. So I'll go ahead and just kind of give you a quick narration. What I'm showing you here right now is the basis for the L pad. It's basically 2 resistors in the shape of an L. Duh. That gold one is a 4.7 ohm 50 watt resistor. That'll bump up the impedance to match about 8 ohms for the entire enclosure. The positive from the amp goes in on the left, shoots out on the right. That resistor hanging down, well, that's the shunt resistor. It's a 10 watt 15 ohm resistor, and its purpose is to kind of equalize the impedance. You see the negative comes off the amp, hits that leg, and it continues on to the speaker. Without that, if you just had that 4.7 ohm 50 watt resistor, the frequency and the volume changes, it would raise and lower that impedance. That shunt resistor kind of keeps it stabilized. And that's basically it. It's dirt simple. At the time, I was waiting for some perf boards to come in so I could mount it and make it look decent. That's about it. Good little cable management. Next clip is just me going over the speaker grill covering. Now, the stuff I got in from Parts Express is pretty much a dead-on match for the existing stuff that was on there. And remember how I said it wasn't really cloth, it was more like almost a hard fabric weave. Well, that's what this is too. It's not a cloth. It was pretty stiff, so I had to kind of mold it, glue it down, and then hit it with the heat shrink gun to kind of get it to tack down in place. I stapled it around the back, and it's all good. Looks good. A couple of mistakes are made. It's a little wavy, and I think I might have dropped some Gorilla Glue, like a drop or 2 on it, and I didn't see, and it dried up, and it, when Gorilla Glue dries, it gets that kind of foamy, opaque. Yeah, that's what that is. But oh well. Now on with the rest of the show. Doing the repair work on the veneer of these things, I used this DAP plastic wood. They have it in golden oak, which is, almost not a perfect match, but it gets you close enough. I don't want anything too light or too dark. You get in the ballpark, and then when you put a light coat of the Old English furniture polish that I use kind of for a stain, it'll blend in seamlessly. You can see where I have this layer just kind of gunked on and drying up. I had about the same amount here, and it's, once you get it sanded down, it really is almost imperceptible. I have like a little indentation. I'm going to put another little dab of the plastic glue here. It's good to work with multiple layers of it to help get it nice and smooth. Using a sanding block. This is well worn off. It was like a 220 grit. That's gone. So I just grabbed some of the 220 grit pads from my orbital sander, but I don't want to use an orbital sander and leave scuff marks. I'm going in one direction with the grain to kind of keep the wood grain look, especially in the filler. You don't want to go anything rougher than 220 grain because it'll really gouge it in. It's, it dries nice and hard, but if you put it like a 120 grit, it'll leave noticeable marks in it. 220 is about the lowest. And then after I get everything nice and flush sanded, probably go over the whole thing with, 400 grit just to even it out. And then wipe everything down with some denatured alcohol or mineral spirits to get all the residual dust and sawdust off of it. And then do the stain, and then do a coating of a light, like probably a satin polyurethane. I don't want it gloss. I like the kind of satin look that it Probably was. I mean, it was probably glossy when it first came out, but over the years it kind of dulls, and I kind of like the more natural look. So I'm gonna finish getting this stuff off. You're gonna take multiple applications, I guess, and then sand it down, clean it off, and then stain and cover. And these should be done and ready. And my dog's going nuts because the garbage men are passing this morning. So if you hear the barking, that's what's happening. It's garbage day. The L pad is finished. Well, both of them are. Just have this one for show. Doesn't look like an L anymore. They're just kind of parallel. I'm going to put some heat shrink on here and clean this stuff up. Get your inputs here, your outputs here. I also replaced the crossover capacitor. It's a 10 microfarad. They were calling for an 8, but 8 is not a very common value for this one, for a film capacitor, I guess, because they were very expensive. These were not expensive. So I'm going to let my wallet dictate this guy here. It sounds good. I mean, I'll bring this back out. I didn't really test it with the back on because I was doing a heat test on this. I had this hooked into my Yamaha receiver. I had AC/DC's back in black, at a decent volume for a few hours, and this didn't even get warm. It's doing the job. I measured it. This thing clocks in at a little under 8 ohms, which is what I want, and it sounded pretty decent. I didn't have, like I said, didn't put the back on, so I can't really judge the bass response, but yeah, it sounded good. It didn't get warm or anything. So we'll stick with the original plan and mount this on the inside, which would make it pretty decent and make it look stock. And yeah, out of sight, out of mind. I'm clean this stuff up, make it look a little bit better. So yeah, that's they're working and they sound great. And you can see I have the front part of the speaker mounted into the enclosure now. Basically, just did what the original speakers had, and just put some glue around it and pressed it in, put a weight on it, and now it's not going anywhere. As if I need to get the speakers out, I'll just have to knock it out and tear it apart. I kind of messed up a little bit. There's a little bit of Gorilla Glue, whatever I used, got right there and went into the fabric and kind of fudged it up just a little bit. Oh well, it gives it character. Plus, these aren't perfectly straight. They're a little wavy. Whatever. They still sound and look decent. A lot better than I did before. So with that being said, I'm going to mount these probably on the back panel, clean everything up, and I think that'll be about it. So let me get to doing that, and I'll be right back. Everything's all buttoned up and secured, and I put some of these little adhesive cork feet on the bottom of these to kind of give it some, I guess, separation between the cabinet of the speaker and whatever surface it's on. I'm going to test this out using pretty much the best thing you can if you want to test bass and treble separation. 1812 Overture. Yeah, nothing says booming bass like cannon fire. This is actually a really good recording. I think it was done in like 79 or something like that. It's pretty old, but it's insane. It's a great recording. So I tried recording this segment earlier using the little clip-on microphone I have, and it sounded like complete garbage. So I'll be using my little Blue Yeti USB stereo microphone. It's not the best, but it works really good. So enjoy. Admittedly, that microphone is really not doing these speakers a lot of justice. I mean, you can kind of hear, that the sound doesn't drop out when a cannon fire was hitting. And that's a testament to those crossover upgrades we did with those capacitors. The tweeters are now kind of doing a little bit more work with the upper mids and the highs, as opposed to before it was just the super highs it was handling in those JVC enclosures. These things sound really good. The cannon shots, those were a nice punch. It's not going to be the big droning hits because these are only 5-inch woofers. If you had like a 15-inch sub, oh yeah, you'd feel it in the back of your teeth. But look what we got to work with. But it sounded good. I mean, you can hear everything. The mids are really nice, the highs are really tight, and that bass is a nice little punch. These things came out good. I mean, for letting Chat GPT take the wheel on designing or redesigning these, I am more than pleased. Everything from the speaker placement to the construction of the L pad, everything is just sounds great. I couldn't be more happy with it. The only problem with this project is it went off a little on the rails financially with having to buy the stuff for the L pad and speaker grill. But I think I'm all in for like maybe $60 or so for the entire thing, and for a nice set of wood retro bookshelf speakers, that's worth it. They sound great. Now, it helps to have a good set of speakers to use to replace the old crappy ones that were in there. And I kind of lucked out with that. Those JVC bookshelf speakers were really nice, and probably on their own, it would have sounded good. They did. But I just like the look of the old retro ones, the old school wood, and the grill cloth. So that's what, we just kept with. Now you could always go to Parts Express if you can't find anything quality, at the thrift store or a garage sale or an estate sale. Parts Express has decent, speakers, really, I mean, better than decent, really good ones, that'll fit in there and do wonderfully. They're going to be a little bit more pricey than buying it at the thrift store, but yeah, that's the way it goes sometimes. But you can really get some good ones at the thrift stores nowadays because they're more focused on the AirPods or the Bluetooth speakers, which they sound great and do whatever, but there's something about the look of these things, you just can't beat it. And these have got to be actually some of the best bookshelf speakers I've ever had sound wise. I mean, I've owned like some of the Radio Shack, the Minimus 7s and the Minimus 5s that they had, and some of those. But mostly growing up, I had either the big floor speakers or the larger conventional stereo speakers where you had like a 12-inch woofer in it, and then you had a mid-range speaker and then a tweeter, three-way speaker system set up. So I'm used to those, but these sound really, really good. Nice full sound. But, I'm happy with the way Chat GPT, everything it suggested. And then even, the physical rebuilding of them and, sanding them down, getting that, get a little color back into them with the furniture polish and a couple of coats of satin polyurethane. They look great. And, I put the badges back on. I kind of centered them. There was an offset on them, and they were kind of made to where if you laid down the speakers, they would look good, but when you stand them up, they were kind of goofy. I plan on keeping these upright, so I just centered them, and that's where they're going to go. So, with that being said, I think this video is done. As always, I appreciate you guys for sticking around and watching, and I apologize that my videos are few and far between, but YouTube's not paying my bills yet, so I got to work. So that's the way it goes sometimes. But until next time, guys, y'all take it easy.